All right, let's finish strong. Nice little Wednesday afternoon of the morning. It's already Wednesday.
Yeah, let's finish like Crawford did last night.
Let's see, Shasky.
To Roger!
Yeah, there you go.
What was that?
Super bad.
Oh, I was like, thought maybe I had done that during the show.
By the way, the Superbad poll, 15 years to the day when Superbad was released.
Break yourself, fool!
The poll is starting to tighten up, folks.
So what is it? How many votes?
Which movie is more of an instant classic, Superbad or American Pie? Superbad leading the way with 53.6% of the vote. American Pie, 46.4% of the vote. I don't think American Pie is getting the respect it deserves right now. It's a classic movie.
It's the Jimmy G of polls.
You guys know a guy named Jimmy?
I can't wait for Jimmy.
I just had to twist
You know what's going to happen? No, you know what's going to happen
What?
in the next 30 years? Every time a 49er quarterback does something good, man, so good to have a quarterback. Remember when Jimmy G couldn't do that? Jimmy Garoppolo is going to be a legend. I wonder if I'm Jimmy Garoppolo.
Well, we did this with Garcia.
If I'm Jimmy Garoppolo, they bring back some of the old Niners for a day. If I'm Jimmy, I'm not even coming. Don't even come. Stay away.
Change your name to McLovin?
Here's Steve Stenstrom.
Yeah.
Here's Jeff Brom.
Right.
Here's Jimmy G.
Hey, Jimmy, you don't even
Jimmy's
deserve
brother, the guy, the singer.
Stay in Illinois, Jimmy. Stay in Illinois. I'm telling you, stay in Illinois. All right. Let's go to Chris Biderman. Sacramento Bee, Candlestick Chronicles. He's live in Minnesota right now.
Ask him.
Ask him about what?
Which movie does he prefer?
Oh, yeah, well, I was going to do that. I thought you were going to say about Jimmy Garoppolo.
Well, you can get
I'm
into
done with
that,
Jimmy. I prefer not to. American Pie or Superbad? Which is the more instant classic movie, Chris?
Oh, man, that's probably the toughest question I've gotten in one of these radio spots. Man, I think I'm going to go with Superbad. American Pie was good. I don't know how well that one's going to age long term. But and I think that movie came out when I was like 11 or 12, so obviously the timing was pretty interesting. But I'm going to go with Superbad because I think it's probably more watchable right now.
I'm with you on that one.
Superbad does age well.
So Bonte has been screaming at me all morning.
See, why do we have to go here? I haven't been screaming. No, it's not true. Shasky texts me at 4:43 in the morning about the report about Chris Sims and this whole Garoppolo
I literally texted
all season stuff, and he knew what he was doing. He knew what he was doing because I've been on vacation. Whether or not Garoppolo goes to the team, I do not care anymore. He's not on his football team. But I have a hard time believing that over the course of his career, he ghosted the entire organization. When it was reported in 2020 that he organized workouts at San Jose State in Nashville, Tennessee with George Kittle and company. So I just want to move off of Jimmy G, Chris.
Yeah, no, that's fair. I think, it's funny because we've heard that stuff before, right? Like George Kittle has said it numerous times, and he says it in a way that's kind of joking, but I think it's been true. Like Jimmy's just hard to get a hold of. And the other thing is like, do we think Tom Brady's returning a bunch of texts on time? Like when he's not even going to the off-season program, right? So like, I don't know how big of a story and how big of a deal it is. I think it might be just an indication of the fact that Jimmy really gets away from football when he needs to get away from football, and everybody has their process. But I guess it was a little interesting that, that might have happened immediately after signing the contract, but I never really got the sense that anybody in the building was too concerned about it, particularly since, when Jimmy Garoppolo was healthy, he was participating in the voluntary portions of the off-season program. So,
wait, Chris.
Yeah.
He volunteered to work out, huh? He went to the voluntary workouts.
Yeah, bonuses built into that.
Oh, okay.
I mean, it wasn't like he was doing what Tom Brady does. And look, obviously Tom Brady's the best quarterback ever. I'm not trying to denigrate him in any way, but Tom Brady doesn't show up to the off-season program these last few years, and he doesn't necessarily need to. So if Jimmy Garoppolo is participating in those voluntary sessions, I don't find it particularly egregious that he's turning his phone off and getting away from football in March or in February or whenever that was happening.
All right, let's get to the team right now. They're in Minnesota practicing against the Minnesota Vikings. Do you find that these practices, just in your experience over the years covering this team, are these practices now more important than the exhibition games?
Yeah, I think so. And I think so largely because Kyle Shanahan thinks so. we've got the 49ers have been more prone to, give starters meaningful reps in these practices than they would in these preseason games. Kyle Shanahan said it. He would rather have no preseason than 4, and certainly 2. He would rather have 2 preseason games than 4 when they actually had 4. So I think it's a situation where you can do more stuff because, the All-22 isn't going to come out on the internet, right? It's you're not going to. The entire league isn't going to be able to pull up tape of these practices. So I think there's an element of that. I just think there's an element of it being more competitive when players can let their hair down a little bit. There's no tackling and all that, but it's just a scenario where it's a little bit more controlled. The coaches can work on certain situations. They do a lot of deliberating before these practices to say, okay, this is going to be a third down period. We're going to work on red zone over here. We're going to do individual pass blocking and pass rushing drills over here and coverage drills over here. So they can get really specific with exactly what they want to work on, and there's some give and take in that. So I do think there's more value in that than preseason games. I'm just not a big preseason guy. Very rarely do I come away from a preseason game thinking a whole lot has changed in terms of, guys winning jobs or, movement on the depth chart and whatnot. I think a lot of that stuff ends up happening on practice more so than in preseason games. And it can happen, obviously, but I think I agree with Kyle Shanahan when he says these practices are more valuable than the preseason games. And we'll see that this week, given that, Trey Lance probably isn't going to play Saturday in Minnesota. And that's what Kyle Shanahan said last week. We'll see if that changes. But if Trey Lance isn't playing in the preseason game and getting, 30, 40 reps over these next 2 days in Minnesota, I think that sort of answers the question right there.
Chris Biderman, Sacramento Bee, and I just got a report. I saw a video of Danny Gray smoking Patrick Peterson for a long touchdown. And
it's like Crabtree all over again.
Hey, Shasky, I've been high on Danny Gray, man. I've been high on Danny Gray. Could be that slot receiver they've been missing. But Chris Biderman, Sacramento Bee here on the Morning Roast. Real quick, the injury front. True that Eric Armstead and Emmanuel Mosley are back on the practice field?
Yeah, you know what? I'm not in Minnesota. I wish I were.
Wait, you're not in Minnesota? I thought you were flying out there. I could have swore I saw you with Tracy Sandler and Matt Mayoko and the companies in the Twin Cities.
No, they're missing me out there.
What? Yeah. How are you not in Minnesota? It's a free trip to Minnesota, Chris. Why the hell are you going to stay in Sacramento?
It's a great question. I got other responsibilities aside from the 49ers.
You're a columnist now. I get it.
I can tell you on the injury front, the only one they're really concerned about right now in terms of missing week 1 is Jimmy Ward. So, they're going to keep these other guys on ice. And look, we've seen it before. A lot of their best players don't necessarily need training camp or the preseason. And the classic example, of course, is Nick Bosa suffering an ankle sprain on the first week of his very first training camp, misses the entire training camp and all of preseason, and then comes in and is immediately one of the team's best players his rookie season in 2019. So I think, that for Jimmy Ward, obviously he has a pretty lengthy injury history, and the hamstring issues that a number of guys have now are pretty important to keep an eye on. But in terms of week 1, I think the 49ers will always prioritize getting guys healthy for week 1 over a few extra practice reps. So they're not overly concerned about any of these injuries, with maybe the exception of Jimmy Ward.
Chris, so your other responsibilities now include covering the Sacramento Kings. That's a rough life, man.
3 games against the Warriors in the first 12 games.
Yeah, I know. How about that? You come down to Chase Center or whatnot, but man, you gave up the 49ers beat to do that? You want to torture yourself? What's up with that, Chris?
These aren't all my decisions, but I'd like to think they loved my 49ers coverage so much they wanted to sprinkle it around to other teams in the Sacramento area too. So no, it could be good for the Kings. Maybe a rough start to the season with the Warriors on the schedule early on, and then maybe the schedule will be easier down the stretch when they're trying to get in that play-in tournament.
And while we were talking, they drafted a 7th point guard, so that's cool.
Leave Sacramento alone.
Before you get on out of here, the one thing everyone wants to know is fantasy football is approaching us, and people are getting ready for their drafts. Everyone wants to know who's going to be that running back for the 49ers every year or wherever Shanahan goes. And everybody believes that Elijah Mitchell's probably the guy heading into the year. Is TDP... Is he somebody, the kid from LSU, is he somebody that you think, maybe not to start the year, but maybe by the middle to the end of the year is somebody who can get 10, 12 carries a game?
Yeah, absolutely. The funny thing, before the season, you get hit up to go on these fantasy football shows, and everybody wants to know like who the running back should be. And the thing is, with Kyle Shanahan's offense, he's had a different leading rusher in all 5 seasons he's been the head coach with the 49ers, and some of that has to do with injuries, of course, and a lot of it, even going back to 2019, like. It seemed like there was a different featured runner every game until Raheem Mostert really sort of asserted himself and took over as a starter. So, as good as the 49ers are going to be running the ball, it's always difficult to pinpoint who that main guy is going to be, particularly from a fantasy perspective. So, yeah, I do expect Elijah Mitchell to be the starter out the gates, but he's been dealing with injuries already. He didn't participate in really any of the off-season program because they were trying to get him healthy. He had surgery on his knee after the season. And so I think just overall with the way things have been going for the running game since Kyle Shanahan took over, it's really hard for me to say, okay, this guy's clearly going to be the leading rusher this season because because of health concerns and matchups and all those different factors. So I think Mitchell is certainly, if he's healthy, going to be the week 1 starter. And then they're going to sprinkle guys in. I think one thing I'm curious to see, do they keep 5 halfbacks this year? Because on the 53-man roster to break the season, they've typically kept 4. And then inevitably at some point in October, November, December, they're dipping into the practice squad to bring a running back up. Or even last year when they're bringing in Kerryon Johnson and Jaquez Patrick off the free agent wire because of injuries. Like, I wonder if they're going to keep 5 halfbacks this year and try to avoid it, because you do have Trey Sermon, who probably, obviously didn't have the rookie season that they had envisioned for him, and drafting Ty Davis-Price certainly was not an endorsement of Trey Sermon, but he's still probably better than somebody you would get from another team's practice squad at some point in the middle of the season if you do deal with injuries. So I wonder if they, maybe go with 3 tight ends on the 53-man roster instead of 4. Maybe go with 8 offensive linemen instead of 9, maybe 9 defensive linemen instead of 10, just so they could have another running back on the roster, so they don't have to dip into another team's practice squad and sign somebody like Jaquez Patrick or Kerryon Johnson just to fill that role, because we know the running game is going to be super important for them this season, given that I'm expecting the 49ers to run the ball as much, if not more, than any other team in the league. I think they're going to be a super run-heavy offense and try to maximize, play action opportunities and deep shots for Trey Lance in doing so. So I think, having 5 running backs would make a lot of sense for them. But in terms of, a fantasy perspective, it's always been really hard to pin down for Kyle Shanahan, because he's always using so many guys and because, so many guys are often getting hurt.
Yeah, I know. I drafted Raheem Mostert last year, and, his season was over in 3 snaps. So, Chris Biderman, you're the best, man. Thanks for carrying Kyle Madsen on the Candlestick Chronicles, man. I mean, you are really the straw that stirs that drink. Chris Biderman, we'll talk soon, buddy.
All right. Thanks for having me, guys.
See ya.